Noir Navio War Room. On the screen, a tired but serious Tornell Swallowtail was on display. Around the room's main table sat Istanel Ferentis, Wyatt Staples, Redford Kalin, and Princess Clara Astor, while her ever-present bodyguard, Cynthia Winfield, stood behind her. In front of her, the holographic map of Hyego was on full display, with several areas marked across its 3 continents. There are fewer violent protests and Grand Revolution loyalist groups than I expected, Clara confessed with mild amusement. I moved quickly to silence those who I knew wouldn't bend the knee, my princess. Regardless, I feared far more defiance after the announcement of the revolution's dissolution and the reintegration of Hyego back into the embrace of the principality. Yet fatalities and casualties have been kept to a minimum, and most protests are quelled quickly, Tornell replied. Unsurprising, Istanel joined in with barely concealed disdain and a flaunting ego to match it. The people of Hyego have experienced many tragedies after that foolish and pointless uprising. Most of them dealt by the hands of their own liberators, he spat in a mocking tone. Tornell narrowed his eyes but didn't refute the count. Wars, purges, famine, diseases, a complete societal downgrade, and a near collapse only staved off by pirates raiding your neighbors. Compared to your current disastrous situation in all fields, returning to the warm, generous embrace of the principality shall be a delicious ambrosia. I would have worded it differently, but you're not wrong, Lord Istanel, Tornell replied with a glare that died a second later. My people have suffered enough. Most of us just want peace and stability. He sighed deeply. It doesn't matter what we believe at this point about the past. It happened. Mistakes were made. All we have now is the future. Clearing his throat, Redford caught everyone's attention. General Tornell, how goes the hunt? Not terribly, Tornell answered in a low tone. The wildfires have been put under control or died out almost entirely, but we won't be sure until the smoke stops from oozing among the ashes. Those Xenos hate fire with a passion. My patrols have killed hundreds, but more remain. Their 2 smaller bases are lightly defended, and we're making everything in our power to keep them there and starve them out while preventing survivors and stragglers from regrouping. Say what you will, but the utter obliteration of their headquarters gave them a mortal wound they won't recover from. They know it. We know it. I suspect they'll try desperate measures to kill as many of us as possible any day now. I'll gladly let them charge through open fields at machine gun emplacements while artillery blasts them apart if they are so eager to die. Filthy Xenos. There was a long pause as Tornell closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he turned to the princess. My princess, have the captured been screened? He asked, avoiding using the word cattle to refer to the sapient prisoners kept by the Drazen. Rest easy, Tornell, Clara began, her voice changing to a more serious, focused tone. Preparations are underway to begin the transportation of your people. As agreed upon, they shall be returned unharmed. Pirates' forces have been set aside and isolated. Their fates have been decided. Those who wish to truly repent will be allowed to earn forgiveness. Their sentences carried through hard labor under your leadership, she said as a cold, heartless smirk appeared on her lips. I ask that you don't kill them, but feel free to make them earn their pardon. There certainly won't be a lack for nasty, dangerous, but necessary work in the coming months, Tornell agreed. The rest? Tried, sentenced, and awaiting execution, Clara replied coldly. I offer you a chance to carry their executions yourself, Tornell, as a sign of my goodwill if you so desire. Tornell remained silent for several seconds, deep in thought, until his answer was conveyed. In days past, I would have accepted your offer, my princess. But I will not have Hyego tainted with their blood. Do with them as you wish. Without hesitation, her irises shimmered for a split second. Captain Milcades, my permission is granted, she said as a smaller screen appeared on Tornell's chest. Said man looked to the side, no doubt watching the same live footage they were all seeing. In the screen, a Royal Marine moved slowly to panel while dozens upon dozens of handcuffed men and women bearing rags for clothes, cheap cybernetics, and skin covered in tattoos and scars shouted obscenities, curses, and worse as a red light shone across the large area they were sealed on. With an unceremonious press of a button, the light turned blue and the curses stopped, giving way to screaming and pleas for mercy. A few seconds later, the doors of what was revealed to be an empty storage bay opened. The pirates were sucked out of the room in quick, violent jerks. The camera shifted to the perspective of exterior cameras where increasingly smaller, flailing figures drifted through space, uselessly clawing at their necks and desperate for breath that wouldn't come. The scene lasted only scant moments before it ended. "And with that, their sentences are carried out," Clara said with a cold dispassion that made Tornell visibly swallow nervously. "Do not worry about their trajectories. Captain Milcades has assured me that their bodies will drift into orbit in a matter of weeks before re-entry turns their bodies into fine particles. And even if something is to survive, the oceans shall receive what remains. None of their filthy blood shall sully Hago's soil," the princess declared. "My princess is most considerate and prepared," Tornell praised, trying his best to appear strong and unbothered. "Some would claim otherwise," Clara countered with a sly smirk. "Now then, some young pirates, either too stupid to know what they were getting into or little better than children, shall remain under my care. I have a project that may bring results worth considering in the future. Nothing you need to concern yourself with, Tornell. Aside from that, there is one problem present with the rest of the rescued prisoners. The Drazen raided several small stations and boarded ships during their incursion deep into Principality space. Most of these prisoners wish to return to their homes." Turning to Istanel, the violet-eyed woman pressed on. "Lord Istanel and House Ferentis have agreed to grant the commoners free passage so that they may resume their lives. Captured nobles have expressed their gratitude and promised a most generous reward. They are of no matter and easily solved." Her eyes narrowed. "Many others, however, commoners who have lost everything, wish to remain on Hago and start a new life." Tornell crossed his arms, understanding the situation. Tensions could prove to be problematic. They are outsiders, though not by choice. But as long as they are commoners, I believe I'll be able to prevent outrage from forming. Things have been changing quickly all around us in the span of mere weeks and days. More drastic changes will only incite discontent if left to fester. He hummed deeply for a moment. "Perhaps I can be of aid?" Istanel asked rhetorically. "This dilemma has a simple solution if you are willing to make minor sacrifices, General." "I'm listening," Tornell replied. With an overly dramatic and slow hand gesture, Istanel presented Wyatt, much to the pilot's puzzlement. "Baron Wyatt Staples has a territory ripe for habitation. They can settle the land easily and away from your radicals, General." The proposal visibly discomforted Wyatt, so much so that he could feel everyone waiting for his reply. "I suppose it could be done. But the abandoned villages were the homes of people before the Drazen came. They won't be needing them anymore, but will they be safe there? The Xenos have left the area. If any survivors remain nearby, then they are hiding. They simply won't have the numbers to risk their lives if all they want is food," Tornell replied with hatred. "And as you said, Wyatt, their original owners won't need them anymore. Lord Istanel is correct. Your barony will provide a relative safe haven for those refugees. May I know, however, what's the name of your barony?" "I haven't decided yet on a name." "My apologies," Wyatt replied. Tornell nodded. "I see. My princess, what is to be done with the sapient cattle?" "We can't house them indefinitely. Their minds are too far gone, molded by the Drazen to be little better than animals. They don't have survival skills, and their cognitive skills are lacking. They've been conditioned to be nothing more than cattle. We'll save those that can be saved. The rest will receive mercy and freedom." "It is all we can do for them," Clara replied with genuine sadness in her voice. "Rightly so. I wouldn't wish that life upon anyone, not even on blue bloods," Tornell said, but quickly composed himself. "And the feral children, my princess?" It was Clara's turn to ponder her answer carefully for the first time in their conversation. "A solution will be found," she replied after a few moments of silence. Tornell nodded in understanding. The few remaining nobles and commoners, neither wishing to stay or leave, have decided to serve under my banner. Some have nowhere else to go, some want revenge, and some feel indebted to repay me for their salvation. Shuttle runs shall begin within the hour. "Understood, my princess. I'll make preparations to receive them," Tornell replied, and the video call ended. "Can he possibly be more ungrateful?" Istanel asked no one in particular the following moment. "My house is to bring precious resources, personnel, expertise, machinery, and more to ease their reconstruction process, and he has the gall to showcase his beastly disdain. Such impertinent insolence should cost him his head. Truly, these are dark times if that rude mongrel is our best prospect for peace and stability in Hygo for the foreseeable future. We all make small sacrifices for a greater good, don't we? Clara countered with a pleasant, tired smile. Indeed? Istinel replied, chuckling to himself in a dignified manner. Clara, if I may be so bold, would you care to consider a courtship, engagement, and marriage proposal once this nasty conflict is over? That is bold of you, Clara replied, unable to contain her amusement while Redford and Cynthia's expressions froze in shock at his casual, straightforward approach. Wyatt only looked at the exchange with a raised eyebrow. May I ask what has developed this turn of events? Simple logic. I've never had an interest or desire to pursue a spouse. My work is my life, my studies are my passion. However, I'm not blind to the realities my position entails. I may not be an heir apparent, but I need to find a respectable, powerful, intelligent woman to marry. Clara let out a laugh, leaning in until her shoulders rested on the table and an open palm supported her chin. You do realize, of course, that I'm a princess? Our union could prove to be a difficult one. Not to mention that I may not live long enough to see this conflict end. My life has been endangered many times in the span of but a few months. Many more may yet come. Istinel nodded. I'm aware of my precarious position and boldness, yet I lose nothing by making my intentions known. Of course, I'd follow the proper ways of courtship were His Majesty, the Prince, accept it. You, Istinel, are far bolder and ambitious than I originally thought, most pleasantly and curiously. For the moment, I will only entertain the idea and give a proper answer after my uncle is stopped and peace has returned to the principality. Do not bind yourself to the expectation of my answer, however, Clara replied, smiling. Istinel nodded and stood up. If my duty to my house is to be determined by my father, then it will be so. For I expect nothing else from you, Clara. Be that as it may, my piece is said, and I shall leave now to tend to my studies and duties. Farewell. With a polite bow of his head, Istinel left the room without shame, nervousness, or hesitation. A few seconds after the doors closed, Cynthia was the first to react. Is he bold, ambitious, or simply rude? I can't decide for myself. Honestly, Clara, why did you allow him to speak to you in such a manner? Clara, returning to her seated position, replied with a playful smile. What a brutally honest man, isn't he? For better or for worse, it is a trait I can respect. You're not considering accepting his proposal, are you? Redford asked, crossing his arms. Clara hummed deeply for a few moments before delivering her answer. Perhaps. Politically speaking, it's a good trade-off. There is no animosity between us, and with our intellects combined, perhaps we could achieve some remarkable goals. Alas, it is all speculation, but it is one worth remembering. I don't suppose something handmade would be a good wedding gift? Wyatt asked all of a sudden. I've never been to a wedding before. 3 sets of eyes turned to him. It didn't take long for his serious expression to break and give a small, pleased smile. In response to his horrible joke, Redford could only shake his head slowly. Cynthia pinched the bridge of her nose, and Clara giggled. Suddenly, the princess clapped her hands together. Speaking of gifts, Wyatt, you've got gifts to receive, or rather prizes. Now that the comm buoy has arrived, I was able to finalize all of our pending and necessary transactions. For capturing the gallant venture on your own, capturing several nobles, including Javier Wunder, Casimir Caiston, and Felicity Cintor, and services rendered, you'll receive a total prize of 20 million credits, with 14 coming from the capture of the light destroyer, the Gallant Venture, she revealed with a sly smirk. Wyatt felt dizzy as darkness crept at the edges of his vision. He felt his heart skip a beat or two, his skin tremble, and his stomach churn, but he didn't succumb to that swift, cold embrace this time. He was able to remain conscious, just barely, much to his blonde friend's disappointment. What? No fainting this time? Oh, well, I do suppose I'll have to be satisfied with those wonderful expressions and reactions, she exclaimed with that same playful smirk. You're a merciless woman, heartless, devoid of compassion, Cynthia protested against her best friend's eccentric sense of humor. Oh, shush you! Wyatt didn't faint, now did he? Clara countered. That does not make your actions acceptable, young lady, Redford joined in. 20 million credits, Wyatt said, managing to get a hold of himself. What am I going to do with so many credits? You could invest half of it into your barony, Clara replied, losing her more playful tone but conserving her gentle, friendly approach. Your land is empty as it stands now, and whoever inhabits it will be destitute. Use it to start developing it, and find people capable of running a semi-decent administration and balancing. You could ask Istinel for help in that field. Wyatt wanted to nod and simply take Clara's advice, but something stopped him. An idea. A curious idea. Clara, Since these people will come to live in my land, that does not get easier to comprehend. Maybe I should ask them? You lose nothing in trying, Clara admitted. All you really need to establish the fundamental base of a functioning estate is a small business with basic resources, a good location, and good workers. You have it all at your disposal. Good workers will be your most precious resource, if not particularly skilled commoners. Which business venture would you like to start with? Forestry. It's what I'm familiar with, Wyatt replied instantly, but Clara shook her head. You need more skilled people who know what they're doing. You need a constant influx of tools, uniforms, security equipment, machinery, or tamed beasts of burden. Start with something simpler and something that can provide a food source, like hunting. Hunting. The word made him remember his brother Weskel and the Clixall. Hago was blessed by not having to deal with the infestation of those giant, dumb as dirt, and angry giant birds. Hunting was a good option, but something even better came to him. He'd never once gone fishing, yet he knew that fishing villages, towns, and outposts hardly went hungry. Fishing, he muttered. What about fishing? There's an ocean and rivers. Clara and Cynthia smiled in unison. Excellent choice. With your investment and Istanel's supervision, you should easily set up a small but stable fishing village near the coast and a power plant on a nearby river. Save credits for small future projects, expansion, wages, and expenses. Their lives will hardly be comfortable, but they will be fed, employed, and protected, and they may prosper in the future, Clara commented, while Cynthia nodded in approval. Then that's what I'll do. They lost everything thanks to the Drazen. It may not be much, but I want to help them live a better life. If they're lucky, maybe they'll capture a Drazen, burn it alive, and hear it scream. Wyatt blinked. Scream! Forest! Screaming forest! Clara, can I name my barony the Barony of Screaming Forests? Not again, Redford muttered weakly. Give up, old man. I've no hope left in me, Cynthia added. Clara's eyes sparkled with merriment, and a wide smile formed on her lips. What a wonderful name! She clapped once before continuing. Now that the name of your barony is decided, tell me, will you truly knight your squad mate, Leopold Dakar? If it means he'll remain as part of the composters and prevent blue bloods from kicking him out just because he's a commoner, then yes, I'll knight him, Wyatt replied without hesitation. Then another thought came to him, a memory, his conversation with Gregor regarding equipment. I have more than enough credits, so why not? Wyatt thought, smiling a wolfish smile. Clara, I want to buy the composter's armor as good as mine. If we're your elite fighter squadron, we might as well look like one, right? Maybe then other blue bloods won't bother us that often. Not wanting to miss such a chance, Cynthia placed a hand on her friend's shoulder and smiled sweetly. Did you hear that, Clara? A whole squadron. A named squadron of elite pilots at your beck and call. Baron Wyatt Staples, Knight Banneret of House Astor. You have my blessing to do whatever you see as necessary to improve the capabilities of of your squadron, the composters, Clara announced, desperately trying not to smile greedily and failing miserably. In that case, Wyatt pressed on, smirking, I was thinking that perhaps a retrofit in one of the unused storage bays could be of use. Clara nodded. Under one condition. Name it, Wyatt replied before Clara gestured with a finger for him to get closer. Commander Redford Kalen watched from the sidelines with a small, sincere smile as Clara whispered something to Wyatt's ear before Cynthia joined in a moment later at the princess's insistence. Noir Navio ceremony room. Leopold was near damn about to shit himself as he knelt in front of Wyatt. Knighted. He was being knighted! Actually knighted! He could hardly hear Wyatt's words as he lowered a sword on his left shoulder, then moved it to his right. His movements were clumsy, lacking any finesse. Thankfully, the danger only lasted a few seconds. He'd seen Wyatt's elevation, who hadn't aboard the Noir Navio, so he knew the differences. Mainly speaking, he didn't hit him as he finished his speech. Will you, Leopold Dakar, obey my commands to protect the innocent and fulfill your duty above all else? Wyatt asked. I do, Leopold answered firmly despite his nervousness. He could feel the amused gazes of Raquel and Nultar, while Gregor stared at the whole chain of events in mild disbelief, but also with an air of solace around him. A commoner has knelt, a knight rises, Wyatt indicated, taking a step back, following Cynthia's careful instructions. The sword was ceremonial, perfect for their purposes. At the corner of his vision he saw it, Clara's condition. As Leopold stood up, Clara and Cynthia all but materialized next to him. A collective gasp echoed in the large, empty room. "Congratulations on your knighthood, Leopold Dakar," Clara said, her mask of perfect neutrality and impeccable manners strong as ever. "Your Majesty!" Leopold cried out, quickly kneeling before her as Raquel, Noltar, and Gregor gave a deep, respectful reverence. "At ease," Wyatt commanded, and reluctantly they all obeyed. Princess Clara wanted to meet with her elite squadron of fighter pilots and see us with her own eyes. "I am not displeased," Clara added. "What about you, Cynthia?" "Scrawny," she said, looking at Leopold. "Weak," she said, turning to Noltar. "Disgraceful," she said, eyeing Gregor up and down. "Pampered," she finished, peering into Raquel's eyes. Then she smiled, causing the 4 pilots to freeze instantly. "Good. I was getting tired of training Wyatt. Now I have another 4 toys to play with."